Welcome back. So thrilled that right now joining us on Skype and via the phone, we have Leah Hirschfeld, and she is a behavioral therapist in our Richmond office. She is a part of the autism research group. She's worked in the research team part time, also doing therapy with a number of clients. And we are just thrilled with this new segment that we've started on the show where we have experts in research taking apart research for us and explaining it to us.
Decoding it to us
Exactly.
lay people.
So that we can understand it. So, Leah, welcome to Autism Live.
Thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm really excited to be talking today. Ooh, that's me.
That is you. Isn't it exciting?
About some of the research that's being conducted with individuals diagnosed with autism.
Well, talk to us. You had picked something you wanted to talk specifically about. Tell us all about it.
Great. So kind of to jump in, the article that I chose is one that every few months the research team puts together summaries of a few recent and exciting articles. So this is one of those articles. The summary will be going out to CARD supervisors, I think, in January from our team. So this is also something Karen did for y'all, I think, last month in the same role, and she's a project manager on the research team, and I'm a research assistant.
That's awesome.
Thanks. We're pretty stoked about it.
So tell us all about it.
So the article I'd like to talk about is by Greg Strummer and his team. They examine different forms of attention and how it functions as a reinforcer for problem and alternative behaviors.
Which already you've lost me. So.
I'll go into it more, no worries.
Okay.
So Stromer and his colleagues developed what they called a rapid assessment of attention types. And they implemented it with their participant who's 13 years old and was diagnosed with ADHD and ASD. So it's pretty much a functional analysis. They're trying to figure out what's going on with why this child is presenting the behaviors that they are, and if different types of attention are encouraging that type of behavior and that reinforcement for them. So for this assessment, they divided the room into 3 sections. 2 included an attention type, and 1 was no interaction. It was a control area. So the attention types were randomized and included 2 negative attention types and 2 positive attention types. So the negative attention were SCs like don't do that and answering perservations. Perservations are questions that were asked and answered previously. So if the participant repeatedly said, is it 4 o'clock yet? Is it 4 o'clock yet? Is it 4 o'clock yet? The therapist would respond every single time, it's not 4 o'clock yet, it's not 4 o'clock yet, it's not 4 o'clock yet, and just kind of repeat the exact kind of thing that the child was saying to them. The positive attention that they chose were praise statements, so something like good job, and positive physical contact, such as a pat on the back. So they did this assessment 3 times, and they had each attention type compared to the other attention type, along with that no interaction area, to see what was the most reinforcing for this child. After that, the authors conducted a treatment session that included functional communication training and planned ignoring. So the FCT, that functional communication training, they were training the child to use a vocal verbal cue and then also give the therapist a picture card in exchange for the attention types that child wanted. So based on the results of that rapid assessment I explained before, where they had that 2 different attention types and that control, the 2 attention types that co-occurred with the fewest behaviors was this negative SD, the don't do that, and the positive praise, the good job. So what this looked like is that the authors would include those options in the treatment plan. So if the child picked up the don't do that card and then touched the wall, I have one behind me, perfect. Then the therapist would say, don't do that, don't touch the wall, you can't touch the wall like that. And if the child presented the good job FCR and started interacting with a game, the therapist would then say positive attention like, good job playing that game, you're so great at that game. So the participant ended up actually consistently choosing that negative SD, the don't do that, for their functional communication training over and over and over again. So the authors implemented schedule thinning halfway through the study, so that negative SD, that don't do that, was no longer available to the participant, and the participant only had the positive good job praise as an option for reinforcement. The authors actually had to implement a timeout from intention procedure because the behavior rates rose so much after implementing that thinning schedule. So the child was increasing his behaviors because he didn't have the type of reinforcement he actually really wanted. Why do we care? Like, why is that important other than, like, that's kind of neat? So I'll start by saying, like I was introduced, I used to be a therapist, and I always use positive reinforcement and saying great job and the positive physical touches of high fives and things like that with my clients. However, praise as a form of attention may not always be functionally equivalent to the form of attention maintaining the problem behavior. So it wasn't really praise that was doing it for this kid. Assessment of attention types may be needed to identify forms of attention that most likely reinforce alternative behaviors. There were some limitations to the study. Anytime you see research, you should always kind of put that critical hat on and be like, can I always trust this? This was a really good study, but the biggest limitation was it was only one kid. So we can't necessarily say this is true about all kids. This is true about all kids with autism. It was an excellent study done, but only with one participant. So it is a limitation. Anyway, that's it on my end. Thank you so much for having me. It's really exciting to get to talk about the research we read. And you guys should see a summary coming out, I think, in January.
Very cool.
That should have this article on it, along with a few others. And please reach out to me or the rest of the team with any questions, any thoughts you guys have, any comments about anything.
Fabulous.
Thank you
So
so
can
much
we
for
ask
having me on the show.
questions?
Mm.
Can I ask you a question? So
Yes,
I
ma'am.
want to make sure that I got it because it sounds,
Right.
I'm not sure that the study was about this, but it sounds, because we know we've had kids that will perseverate
Right.
on things and it's really hard to break that up. But it sounds like to me that the negative attention was what was maintaining the perseveration. Is that right?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was that negative attention, and then they had to really work pretty hard to get the positive attention to be something the child wanted.
I see. And so, you know, as you said, this isn't going to apply to all children, but my takeaway for that is that when we as parents say things like, don't do that, we're
Right.
just making the problem
Right,
worse.
because the negative attention is reinforcing.
And instead, we have to work twice as hard to get them to want the praise for doing something else.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's spot on. And like you said,
Got it.
there's a caveat. This was one kid, but that's exactly spot on. Yeah.
Okay, that's good to know because we all do that.
Yes.
We all say, don't do that, don't do that.
Wyatt has
stop doing
started
it."
recently in mimicking a friend who is hand flapping.
Great.
And I've heard people say to him, don't do that. And I've said, don't do that.
Yeah,
Don't
that's not
tell him
helpful.
not to do that. No, it's not helpful at all.
All right. Well, this is very useful.
Yes.
Thank you, Leah. We're so glad to have you, and thank everybody on the team. We're excited about this new segment, really.
Thank you guys so much for having us. We love it.
All right,
Have a
you
good one, y'all.
take care. Happy New Year.
Thanks, you too.
Bye-bye. Okay, that was I'm because in the middle there I was like, am I getting this?
Right,
I'm
me
not
too.
sure.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
not.
I think
but
we got
then-
it, though.
And then it was
I
like
think we
we
got it.
brought it home. That always makes me excited. Okay,
Okay,
we have got a great guest.
Yes, we're going to take a break because we're going to come back with Brian Harrett, who is known as the Autism Cop. And Brian has been training those first responders and others to deal with individuals on the autism spectrum. He has a
So-
son with autism, so we're going to talk to him about
We're going to take a break and we're going to figure out how to clone him
Okay.
during the break.
Yeah.
And then we'll come back with him live in the studio. So stick with us.
Okay.